Hello everybody. Are you ready for a Saturday evening coding session? Because I have to continue my work on my social network project. So of course I stream because I guess it's a lot of fun. I'm not sure of those of you who are watching right now if you watched this morning, because I streamed also this morning when I worked on this project. And then basically I encountered some issue when injecting our repository in another service, and yeah, it seems that there are some problems with different threads being used when the application is bootstrapped and when you basically want to render some components, and I really didn't manage to find a real solution to it, but of course a workaround I was able to find. So let me first show you what I did. So first of all, it seems that when you're working with server-side Blazor, when you add your DB context like here, it's actually better to add it with the service lifetime of transient. By default, when you add the DB context, it adds it as scoped. Now, the reason behind this is it seems that, when we are working on normal or regular MVC projects, a scoped means basically that each service or the scope services are, as the name suggests, scoped to a request. So basically, you get a new instance of that service whenever a new request comes in, and when the request is over, when the response is generated, then that instance is destroyed. And for each incoming request, you basically have then a new service. Now, with server-side Blazor, the challenge is that basically the idea of scoped, you cannot scope it to a request because everything actually runs in the browser via that singular connection. So the scoped in server-side Blazor means that it's actually scoped to the singular connection. What this actually means is that your DB context is very long-lived, because it actually lives until the user refreshes the browser or basically closes the application, and that can cause some concurrency problem with the entity framework core. Because if you try, for instance, in one component for maybe to I don't know, perform a certain query or command on the DB context, and maybe at the same time in a different component you try to use the DB context for something else, then you will get an error. I didn't get errors, so this was one of the main problems that I have, but I still think that it was something like a problem with the different thread, with the different threads somehow concurring with each other. So the whole idea is that I have set up this let me show you, AppState service. And I actually use this AppState service only in the Blazor part, and the whole idea was for this AppState service to just provide information to consumers, like the components for instance, about the currently signed in user. Like the claims that they have, it offers methods to get the values of certain claims, like name, like username, like email address, and so on. So this all works fairly fine. But what I also wanted to add to this service was actually another property that would hold actually the authenticated user. And in fact, you see here this field. But this unfortunately is not possible, or at least in my case it really doesn't work. But I still need it, or I still think that it's very important to somehow pass the currently authenticated user instance with all its information, like the friends that he's having or she's having and so on, to all the components, because we might need to implement some logging based on the currently logged in user maybe, and to which profile does that user want to take a look at. And for instance, if I'm viewing my own profile, so it's the currently authenticated user, and the profile that I'm viewing is actually the same, then it means that, for instance, I can display the pending friend requests and so on. The place of add scoped AppState is wrong. Okay, what do you mean with that? This one actually, I want to be scoped, but I also tried it to be transient or things like that. But where do you suggest to place it? because I tried different things this morning, and actually nothing really seemed to work. Okay, but so the way that I came up with of sending or making the authenticated user available basically everywhere in the application, it has to be before it doesn't really have anything to do with the HTTP context accessor. That one is actually only used for the Blazor pages. You don't have access to the HTTP context accessor in the Blazor part of the application at all. So this is something that I've tried a few weeks back already. So you can't inject it everywhere. So this only works in the Blazor pages. However, I might give it a try, maybe later today. But the idea is that where do I have the main layout? So what I ended up doing is actually in this main layout, I'm using here a cascading value, and this is actually a very cool thing that Blazor has, and that to my knowledge doesn't exist in Angular, for instance. So you can basically, if you want to pass in some value, some information, some state to a component through, I would say, let's say an almost endless hierarchy of different child components, then you have this option of using cascading values, and this means that this value will be cascaded to really all the components basically that will be displayed here. And what this actually allows us to do, or what this allows me to do, is that in each component I can for instance, and let me check where exactly did I use this one. I don't recall exactly where I have used it. It has to be here. So timeline, I guess it should be here. This timeline component, no, I don't use it here. Where did I use that? Let me just find out quickly. Here, for instance, in this component, in the cover of the profile, I'm basically setting this user, and I'm giving the name of authenticated user, and basically this one, or the value, the user itself, the instance, is passed in through this cascading parameter right from the main layout. And this workaround actually helps me to achieve what I wanted, and this being just to have in wherever I actually need it, to have information about the currently authenticated user, which is actually what I need right now. So let me go, because I have written down what I still need to do. So that AppState service, that on that one I worked this morning. So right now we are at the second point. So here we need to add some functionality on adding on removing friends. The first thing here that we have to notice that if two users are friends, then the add friend button should not be displayed. And actually the add friend button is, I guess, exactly in this timeline cover. And here, for instance, I already have this if show add friend button. So basically, I guess we'll have to implement maybe a deeper logic to it. So right now I'm checking, for instance, so if the username that currently we get through the routing is actually equal to the username that I get passed in here in this component, which means that I'm basically viewing my own profile, then is this show add friend button, it shouldn't be displayed. So I guess we should maybe just add some more logic to that, and let's maybe create a private method for that. Private, it should be void, and here let's name it show add friend button. Okay, And let's see what could we actually. It's the same name as the property, so this is not okay. So we have to change this a little bit. How should we call that? It's not show add friends button is not. Maybe we should change this property name. Maybe it should be. Where do I have it? Where do I have it here? It should be add friend button visible. Add friend. Okay, sorry. And then of course we should change wherever we use this. But here actually what we'll do here is only call show add friend button, and this would actually compute if we should show the add friend button or no. So what it essentially will do, this method, it will set the property for show add friends button or add friends button visible to either true or false based on different criteria. And right now we have some different things here. So once we have this user, which is actually passed in by our parent component, which is actually the user for which we are currently viewing the profile. And then we have an authenticated user. Where is it? Here. We have this authenticated user, which is right now the currently the user that is currently logged in. So the first logic that we had is actually, and let's take it one by one, I guess. And so if I can say, I guess, if, and let me just do some things here. So if user, so the user for which I'm currently viewing this profile equals authenticated user, so the user that is currently authenticated, then the show add friends button visible should be true. Now of course we need to, did I mistype it? Add friend without the s at the end. Okay, so add friend button visible. But now the requirement is we should also compute if the two users are still different but are friends, so there is a relationship between them, then actually what we need to do is that we should also not display this add friend button. So in this case, what I will do is so if the user is equal to the authenticated user, then this should be actually false, because I shouldn't see the button on my own profile. So then we should see how we have here. We have the friends of the user that you are currently basically or for the profile on which you are currently at, and we have also the friends of the authenticated user. So I guess we can implement here some let's implement some very basic logic with the variables. So if I don't know, users are friends, and this should be something like, I could, for instance, go through the authenticated user friends, and I could do something like that. Authenticated user dot friend first or default, and here I mistyped something. Authenticated authenticated user.friends first or default. And actually I'm looking for a user here. It's not you. So I'm looking for a user for which the ID, but it's not if, sorry. But why did this should be an enumerable, so we should be able to actually do some stuff here. So user.id. So in the friends we look for a user for which the ID is equal. Right now we are on the friends of the authenticated user, so we should see if we find something that actually equals to actually the user that for which we are currently viewing the profile. So that would be user.id. And this first or default, you need to lambda expression before first or default. What? You need lambda expression before first or default. Why should I need a lambda expression? Because that's usually how we do it. Only that probably when I was using only one letter, Visual Studio thought I might want to do something else. So the idea is that first or default actually returns the first element in square that passes the applied predicament. Okay, so it returns the default. If it doesn't find something, then this could be a default. So this would be either a user or it would be null. So in this case we could also say something like that. Or first I just want to bring up all the conditions that I really want to have here, and then we'll see how we can stitch it up together. So for now I can do another if and say that if users are friends is null, then in this case add friend button should add friend visible should also be false. Okay, so this covers the case if users are friend, and then the other requirement is that if in the friends list add a button for each. Okay, if there is an existing pending friend request. If there is an existing pending friend request, we have actually a list of pending friend requests. So right now let's think about this. I'm the authenticated user and I'm looking on a certain profile. So I basically have to check here if me, the authenticated user, has sent a friend request to the profile basically that I'm viewing. And if this is the case, then the user profile that I'm viewing should have a pending request with the from field being me. So let's var pending friend request equals, and here I can see user dot pending friend requests, again first or default, and here a pending friend request PFR, and I'm looking for a PFR for which the, let's say it should be I should be, so the authenticated user in this case should be on the from, and this is a GUID, and this should be equal to authenticated user dot ID. And once again I would say, and let's maybe group those to have an idea that they actually belong together. So in this case I can make a new if and say if pending friend request the pending friend request. Let me go to the domain, because I have to look exactly what this pending friend request is as a data type. And here we have this friend request, and it is a value object. Okay. So this means that we can check for null with equality. So if pending friend request equals null, but actually if this is null, now I'm thinking about it. So if this is null actually, then that would mean that actually that there is no friend relationship here. So then the add friends button visible should be actually true, not false, because I should be able to see the add friends button. And then if there is a pending friend request, then the add friends button visible. So if there is an existing pending friend request, then I shouldn't see the button. Then I shouldn't see the button. And I guess these are the requirements. I'm thinking right now if I cover everything. So first we check if this add friend button is visible. So we check if I'm basically viewing my own profile, and if I'm viewing my own profile, then this button shouldn't be visible. Then I'm checking, for instance, if the authenticated user has a friendship relationship with the user that I'm currently viewing the profile. And in this case, this is true. But maybe we can try to somehow concatenate all these conditions in only one if statement, because otherwise I guess that there might be some scenarios where but you know what I can do here? I can basically negate this. And then I could even display here false. So in all these three cases, I would add this to false. So I could set the default value for this one to be true. So let's go back to the property, and let's say that this is by default true. And only if one of those conditions are met, then we'll set it to false. And of course, on initialized, we do this check actually. So yeah, let's try to do that, or let's try to test it. Let's try to test it. Oh, I have errors. Let me see. 2 errors. Maybe some. If show add friend button. Okay. Because yeah, we changed the name for that. Add friend button visible. In this case, it should be like that. And here it's the same. Okay. So now I guess we shouldn't have any errors, so we can just test this out. We can just test this out in this case, and let's see. So I will be now probably logged in as a user. I'm not sure exactly which user was the last that I was logged in with, but now what is the problem? Okay, it loaded. So I'm logged in as this user Arya Stark, and if I go on the timeline of Arya Stark, so first in this case, so this is the case when I'm actually viewing my own profile, and the add friend button is not shown, so this is correct. Now if I go here, I see that I have a friend, which is this user. If I navigate to this user's profile, then we have a friend relationship, so the add friend button should also not be displayed, and it is not displayed, which is for now correct. So right now the only thing that we still have to change or to check if to see if we have a pending friend request. But for this I just have to go and delete the friend relationship from the database, because I haven't implemented yet the add friend or the remove or unfriend functionality. So let me go on SQL Server Object Explorer, and I have here a table which is called relationships, and in this table we should have these two relationships, because when two users are friends, like let's say user A and user B, basically when there is a friend relationship, we create actually a relationship from user A to user B and from user B to user A. And that's why we have actually for each relationship we have two entries. So let's delete this first one. Okay, but why doesn't delete work? Let's try again. And also let's delete the second. So right now, basically we don't have any friend relationship anymore between those two users. And also let me open the pending friend request. Table. And yeah, we see that we don't have anything here. So let's now run this application once again. I can close this right now. Right now I will actually log out, log in as myself again, and then try to send a friend request for Arya Stark, and then we'll log in as Arya, and we'll see if or first I would have to check if I can see the button. But yeah, I guess here that we have a scenario that we also have to take into consideration. So let's log out. This will remove the cookie, and I will log in again with this user. So right now I'm logged in with this user. Let's go to the profile of Arya Stark. And I can't see the button. Yeah, that is a bug, because I should see the button. Let me try to refresh the browser. Oh, I still don't see the button. Let me just put a breakpoint. In this one. And let's see exactly what happens there. So let me refresh that. So we hit the breakpoint. Now currently the add friends button is set to true. It should be the default, and it is. Now we check here if this user, you see that this is the user for which I'm viewing the profile. So this is Arya Stark, and then this is the authenticated user, which in this case we see that it's actually me. So it's clear these two users are not the same. So actually this shouldn't be the case. Now here we have to check if we have a friend relationship, and if we go to, let's go to the authenticated user, and we see that friends, there should be something named friends here. Where is it? Friends, count is 0. So of course this shouldn't be actually a relationship. So we skip that. So the add friends button is still true. So now I have to see if there is a pending friend request, and the pending friend request should be on the user, on the target user, and this target user has no, it hasn't a pending friend request. So it's no friend request there. So actually this should be null after I go through that, and it is null. Okay, and then why is this set? It's still false. That's strange. That's strange. Let me check again this. Let me close this edit profile folder because we don't need it. Let me also close the newsfeed right now, and let's go back to this timeline cover. So we say that if add friends button visible, if this is true, then we should actually display something. Let me put a breakpoint here. Oh, that's actually for the small screen, so this is not what will hit. This is for the large screen. So if the add friends button is visible, then we have to check here. No parent equals true, or it's 0. It's count 0, and this means that that is null, and then it is set to false. So this means that okay, that should be true indeed. So that should be true. That should be true. Yeah, correct. That should be actually true in this case. So I want to be able to return to set everything false here, so that I can keep the default value if it is the case. So we can simply make it like that, and now we can set it to false. Then it should do it. Should have other way around condition. Okay. Yeah, let's try to see now, because right now I should be able to see the button. But then there is another property that I saw basically right now when debugging, which is the button content text. Because if there is a pending friend request, then actually what I want to do is to also display that, to maybe display the button, but instead of yeah, but that would be just a little bit more complicated afterwards. So right now I'm on my own profile, so this is okay. So let's go to Arya Stark. And yeah, right now I have the add friend button. And right now what will happen when I click this button, actually a friend request will be generated. And this button right now changes the content basically and the color, and says that yeah, okay, in this case you just have sent a friend request, which is correct. But the only problem with this is that if I will refresh the page, you see that the button won't show anymore. So I won't be able to see that I actually sent a friend request. And what I actually think about doing, I think that the easiest way to do that, but I guess we'll cover this just a little bit later. I just want to log out and log in as Arya right now. And here, let me type the password, and hopefully I type the correct one. So if I go right now to my timeline, of course I shouldn't be able to see my button, but I should be able to see this pending friend request. And then if I go to the profile that sent me the friend request, yeah, in that case, the add friend button should also not be visible. Because if that user already has sent me a friend request, then I shouldn't be able to actually send a request to that person. That would cause some problems, I guess. Just condition other way, make negative condition. Okay. So yeah, I have to right now see how we should handle this one. So if I have a pending friend request and I'm going to visit the user that actually sent me that friend request, then I shouldn't be able to see the button. And this time, I guess we should add another condition. Or maybe just check both ways here. So the first one would be pending friend request from. So I have to check if I, the currently authenticated user, have a friend request from that user. So I have to check both of them. So in that case, var pending on me being the authenticated user, or pending on out user, and this would be the authenticated user dot pending friend requests here first or default, and let's maybe push that one line down. So here I would have to check exactly the other way. So here I'm checking the user if it has a pending friend request from the authenticating user. Right now I have to do exactly the other way around. So in that case, the authenticating user pending friend request, I want to look for a request, pending friend request, where the pending friend request from equals to user.id. And actually, I also think that these conditions should actually be met simultaneously. Because if that user actually sent me already a friend request, then I should have a pending friend request from that user. So let's then just add here and pending on out user equals So actually, if this is not null, so here if there is a pending friend request from the authenticated user, then I shouldn't display that. And if there is a pending friend request that I have to actually act upon, I'm getting a little bit confused here, and there should be surely ways to achieve this in probably a more simple way. But yeah, so if the pending on out user not equals null actually, and this is what I think that should be met simultaneously. So the condition will go in else part. Yeah, but that condition would always go in the else part? I guess no, because if there is no friend request at all, then let me check. Because I think, I don't know, maybe I'm thinking this wrong right now. Maybe it's just a little bit too late, but I still have to work on this. And I said the main purpose of this is just to make it work as soon as possible. Okay, so right now I'm logged in as Aria. So if I go here and I would look up the user that sent me a friend request, I still see the add friend button. Even if I have a pending friend request from that one, you cannot target both together. Okay. But that's bad in that case. That's bad. That's bad. Okay, then let's just delete that. Maybe put another condition. So if right now I am the authenticated user. So if I am the authenticated user, so pending on out. So basically, if this is null, then it means that I don't have a friend request from that person. So theoretically I should set this to true, but as I want to set the button to false in this case, actually, I would negate this just like we did previously, I would say, and then add friend button visible, and let's make it false. Let's try again. I was always very bad at logical operators. So once again, right now I'm Arya Stark. If I go to my timeline, I see a pending friend request from this user. So when I navigate to this user's profile, I just want to don't see the add friends button. So let me go there, and I don't see the add friends button in this case, which is actually correct. That's correct right now. But let me just do one thing. Let me go back to this. So here in friend request, if we do refresh, we should have a value. So let's just delete this value. This means that well, there is basically no pending friend request anymore. So when we refresh the page right now I can see the button, which is correct, I guess. And let me just log out and log in as the other user. It's faster to run app and make changes on code and see refactor changes just refreshing the browser. Yeah, but depending where you want to make the changes to the code, because I guess it's not everywhere possible. In the backend I can't really make changes while I'm debugging. So let me log in with this other user. Let me go to the timeline. So I don't have any pending friend requests. Let me go to this user. It's A Stark. And I can still see the add friend button. Right now it's changed. And if I refresh, I don't see it anymore, which is correct. If I go to my own profile, then I still don't see the button, which is correct. So let's log in with the other user. A Stark. Let's go first to the timeline to see the friend request. Yeah, we have the friend request here. And if we go to that user, we don't see the button because I have a pending friend request from that user, which is actually, I guess that should do it for now with this functionality. Let me just accept the friend request and to check afterwards. So I have accepted the friend request. Right now I have one friend, so if I go under friends I can see it. And if I go to the other user's profile, okay, I have an error here. Reference not set to the instance of the object. Okay. This is probably because we have somewhere checked for equality on an entity, or checked against null on an entity, which is not something that is supported, because I have overridden the equality operators to validate only if the IDs of users match. So here I have, but none of those should actually be null in this case, because this is the only comparison between users that I actually do here. because all the others are not returning users. So this is returning a friend request. The friend request is a value object and I haven't overwritten, or have I? Let me just debug it. Let me just debug it. So the problem was why does it take so long this time? So the problem was, if I go to my timeline right now, why does it? Okay, because we are debugging this, but that I guess should work right now because I'm on my own timeline, and if I go to friends I can see the friends. So the problem was when I was going here, but why did it actually happen? So we have the authenticated user, which is not null, and we have the user, which is also not null. So where do I have problems here? So this is user friends. Okay, so I guess that's actually a user. Yeah, that's the problem here. But here I don't check for equality, so that's why I say is null. And then pending friend request, this is a friend request and this is also a friend request. Those could be null. So I should be able to check against null. I don't really get it, but I also don't really get it why I actually went in this method when I just wanted to navigate away. It's probably it didn't wait until I actually was finished to type the route that I want to go, and it already tried to resolve that. But it seemed like that, at least. And then probably this is also the reason why it's I got the null. Because if I say here I go on this pending friend requests, and this is null, that should be okay. So I'm able to view actually this user right now. So I guess this is why I got the error, because right when I was starting to type, what actually happened is that it actually tried to resolve the route already, which is actually very bad, because if you want to type something manually, well, that would be a bug, I would say. Because if I go, once again, let's go to my own timeline, or the timeline of the user that I'm currently logged in with. And here is Arya Stark. If I go here, and actually, but now it worked. And here I can see as friends Arya Stark, which is correct, I guess. So let's check also the other way around. So right now I'm logged in with this user. If I go to my timeline, I should see the friends. I shouldn't have any pending friend requests. So if I go to A Stark, then I shouldn't see the add friend, and I should see the friends. Yeah, okay, that's okay. So I guess that with this, I think I won't bother right now with the content of the buttons. So the next functionality is that in the friend list, we should add a button to each friend to allow an unfriend action. So that's the next functionality that I want to implement. So in this case, that would be in the timeline friends, I guess. So here basically we have this for each, And here we should actually add a button. Let me go to the timeline cover, or no, just let me add a button here. And for instance, for each friend, I should have a button. I should class equals btn. Let's make it btn. I don't know, danger, or something like that. And this button, we should have an on click. And when I click, I unfriend. I should say unfriend. Okay, and of course, but we have to specify to unfriend who actually. So which person should we actually unfriend? So in this case, we have here this friend, which is user. So in that case, we can just send in the friend. And of course, we have to implement this method here. And actually what we will need to do, because we are here in a child component and we don't handle data in the child components, we only handle data in the parent component. So we'll actually create an event callback to which actually the parent component will subscribe, and the parent component will actually perform the actual unfriend action basically, and persist it in the database. So first of all, we would need, then in this case, a parameter, which will be, because we'll send the exact user that we want to unfriend. So in this case, we'll say that this would be an event callback, and it would be a generic one, that would be of user. So we'll let's unfriend user get set. Okay, and what we'll actually do here is we'll create a private method. Private, it would be async task unfriend, and we'll get here. Why it should be public, of course. Parameters should be public in Blazor. So that was the problem. So here I will get the user from my razor part, from my markup actually, and then what I could simply say, I would say only in await unfriend user dot invoke async, and just pass in the user that we get. And then in the parent component, which should be this one, we should actually, in the markup, timeline about, timeline friends component. So here we should actually then subscribe actually to that event callback, and we'll say that unfriend user, it's actually but now if I think better, I guess we should name this on unfriend because it's an event. So let's keep consistent with that one. So in this case, if we come back here, it would be on unfriend user. Then we will simply implement a method that that would be called also unfriend. So if we go in the code behind here, we'll have like a private, it will be async, it will be task, it doesn't need to return anything, unfriend. Then from the callback itself, so from the event, we'll receive the user that we actually want to unfriend. So in this case, I don't recall exactly how this was done in the repository, but I guess we'll probably check that out sooner rather than later. So the next thing that we could do here is basically let me just look in the repository first what actually this unfriend does, because I have here in the repository something. Get user friends async, get colleagues, get user by ID, remove friend async. So it's actually this one. let's remove. So why is that like that? So yeah, I hate myself that I didn't comment my code when I wrote that. That's actually around 1 month ago. We want to remove a friend async. So we have the user to update. So in this user, basically we remove the friend. This is a method behavior that we have on our domain model, so which would be okay. And then this means, so the next thing that we would have to do is basically just remove the relationship. Then we would have to remove the relationship both ways, basically. So this is what we actually do here. And because we get those relationships, we get those two relationships, and then we basically remove them. And then we save the changes on this one. But actually what I want to do, because I would like to return so this is actually the user that will be updated, meaning that from this user's friend list I will remove this friend. So that's actually the logic behind, I guess. But there is one thing that I want to change here. So first of all, I want this where is it? Remove friend async. So this is one. I actually want this to return a task of user, because I want to return the user that was updated. So for which we remove the friend, I just want to return it to the caller once all the changes are saved on the context. So let's then go back to the repository and implement this change. So this time it would be a task of user. And actually right now the only thing that I guess we need to return is return this user to update. So right now the updated user should be returned, and it shouldn't have this friend to add or to remove anymore. So yeah, let's maybe put a breakpoint here, and let's go through all the stuff that we have here in this this timeline. So let's start from the child. So in the child, which is this one, we actually, here it says unfriend. Okay, because here if we want to pass something that way, I guess we should do something like that. How was it? I guess it's in parentheses, everything, and in the parentheses I have an async. Should be something like that, I guess. Yeah, at least it seems that I don't have any errors, but still, because this call is not awaited, execution of the current method continues before the call. Okay, but unfriend is async, so yeah, of course we can await it. So this solves the problem right now, but here await, it's on unfriend user, of course, because we have changed the name. So right now basically this child should correctly basically notify the parent that, hey, the current user wants actually to remove a user from the profile, and then the parent is notified about that through this event callback, and when this happens it actually executes this unfriend method, and here in this no need of async. Okay, maybe you're right, but I guess if the method is async, we should, I don't know, maybe do this with the async and await. I know that in the documentations and in all the tutorials it's a simple action like that, but but I don't think that's actually a good idea. Okay, so if we want to unfriend the user, actually what we have to do is, first of all, we want after the entire unfriend process with the repository, the current user actually, should be equal to the new user that is returned, because it should have the updated friend list. So in this case, I would simply say await users dot remove friend async, and then I would have to pass the user that needs to be updated, which is user, and I would need to pass in let's maybe call this friend to remove. Let's make it clear. So I pass in the user because this user needs to be updated, and I pass in a friend to remove, the user that actually needs to be removed, and then that should actually return me the new user. And then of course that I should it should have an updated friends list. But I guess what I can do here is to not really wait. I can also say because how do I actually display the friends? So when I do the accept friend request, because what I think I can do here is, oh, let's try it like that, because that should trigger also the state has changed, and then basically everything should be re-rendered containing the new information. At least that's, I think, the theory behind that. So let's maybe try this out. But before we do that, I think there's another very important part that we have to take care of, because this unfriend button should only be displayed if I try to unfriend my own friends. So in this case, we will also need the authenticated user here. We will also need the authenticated user here. So let's just have it from the cascading value, cascading parameter. It will be public user authenticated user get a set. And then what else I would need actually, it would be another property actually that could be even private, unfriend button visible. But actually the unfriend button visible, that's why I think right now that has nothing to do with the parent. That's actually a thing that we should do in the child, because that doesn't mean to that's actually a rendering logic. So should I display that button or shouldn't I display that button? So that's part of the presentation component. So let's have a private bool, and let's see here unfriend button visible, and let me get set, and let's set this as false as a default value. And then maybe I will go on the onInitialized, and in the onInitialized I will have to basically define if I can set the correct value. And then there is one thing that I need, is the authenticated user. Cascading parameter public user authenticated user get set. And right now that's easy, because if those two users match, so if they are the same, then I can display the button. In all other circumstances I shouldn't do that. Okay, so I guess that would be fairly easy to do. Protected override void on initialized, I don't think that we need here the async one, because it's nothing async that we actually want to do. It's just that we want to make a very basic comparison. So if the user, so if the profile that we are currently watching on is the same as the authenticated user, then only in this case the unfriend button visible should be set to true. In all other cases it will remain the default there. So this is actually where we need to implement this type of logic. So yeah, let's give it a try right now. But yeah, let's see what happens. We'll adjust then. Let's start. Okay, let's see. So right now we should have already a relationship, a friendship here between those two users. And right now I'm logged in as this user. So if I'm going to my own timeline, then I should, of course we didn't put text here on this button, but yeah, the button is actually here. But if I go to this user and if I go to friends, the button is still there. That's actually bad. That's actually bad. That is actually bad. Let's do some changes here. So first on, I want to say here unfriend. Okay. So that should be the content of the button. And then what I would like to do here is going to this on initialized, because I think a problem here would be that this is actually unfriend button visible. Oh my god, we don't set it actually in the, oh my god, I'm so stupid. Because we have to set an if here, of course. So if unfriend button visible, only in this case I want to display the button, not other way. Yeah, that's it. That was a very strange mistake, of course. Yeah, that should do it, at least for now. And we should also see a value for the button, so it should display just a little bit bigger. So let's check that out. Let's check that out. Browser is always opened on the other screen. That I hate that. I really hate that. So let's see. It does take a little bit longer right now, but yeah. So I'm logged in with this user, so I'm going on my own timeline and on friends. Then of course I get to hit this, but I really don't care right now. So right now I can see the unfriend button, which is okay, but if I'm going to a Stark and to friends, let me go through this. So here is the user, which of course is the user profile of Arya Stark, and the authenticated user is me. So in this case we shouldn't set this unfriend visible, so it should remain to false, and it actually did. So in this case I cannot unfriend because I'm not viewing my own profile. Yeah, once again, if I go on my timeline and on friends, I can do that because here I am on my page, so I can totally do that. Let's just out of curiosity log in with the other user and check if it works the other way around. and then of course check if the remove friend actually works. So let's see here. We have this one, and first let's go to my own timeline. In this case I'm this user, and if I go to friends I can see the unfriend button, but if I go that user, that is my friend, I cannot say unfriend here, because imagine here I would see all the friends of that user. I cannot simply unfriend those users impersonating this one. So yeah, that would totally not be all right. So this actually seems to work right now. So let's go to the timeline, so to my own timeline, or to the timeline of the user that I'm currently logged in with, and let's click this unfriend button, and let me just put some breakpoints first, because where I want to put some breakpoints is in the parent component. I want to put a breakpoint here, and I guess I already put some breakpoints on the repository. So let's just try this out. So first, yeah, we see that we want to unfriend. So we actually want to remove this user, which is correct, from this user, which is correct because this user performed actually this unfriend action. So till now everything seems to be fine. So right now I'm in this repository and I want to return this user to update after doing all the changes. And let me see if this user friends, it still has a friend. That is actually not good. This user still has a friend. Right till here I should have already saved the changes in the database. So let me see. Here we have the user to update. Of course, this user to update right now has all the friends and things like that. But after we say user to update, remove friend. Okay, but no, that's actually bad. That's actually bad what happens here, because I'm removing actually myself. Of course I can't really do that. But let me just look into this method on the domain model. Yeah, so it's friends to remove. So I guess that it's just a typo here, because I want to remove this friend, to add remove. So it's actually that this is this friend I want to remove. And let me just see in the database if the relationship was removed or something like that, because I think that the relationship was removed. However, so SQL Server Object Explorer, and here relationships, and view data, yeah, and indeed. So right now we actually don't have any relationship anymore. So basically what we did here is actually we removed it from the database, but for the user instance it still remained there. So if we run the application right now, I guess we shouldn't see any friends for none of these users, but we can just send a friend request, accept it, and yeah, then try again. And right now I guess that it should work correctly. Let me check. Let me just check this. Okay, so I'm logged in with this user. If I go to my timeline, I shouldn't see any friends here. Indeed, there's 0 friends, that's correct. And if I go to that other user, for that user I should also see friends, no friends, 0 friends. So that is actually correct. And I actually see this add friend button, which is correct. So let's add the friend here. And now let's log out. Let's log in as the other user and accept this. So right now, if I go to my timeline, I should see the pending friend request, and I can say accept. And right now I can see that yes, I have a friend here, and I have also the option to unfriend. Let me just check if it appears also on the other timeline. If I go on friends, yes, it appears, and there is the remove button is not possible there. Okay, so in that case, let me go to my own timeline and just remove this friend. Let's do an unfriend. So this is what we're doing right now, and here the user to update. Let me see, friends count is 0. So this time actually the update was done correctly, and yeah, indeed I don't see this this user here anymore. So I don't have it as a friend, so I have 0 friends right now. Pending friend request is also empty, and if I go to this other user, to Arya Stark, and on friends it's still 0. So yeah, in this case it worked. So we have successfully implemented this remove friend functionality, which is actually very important, because yeah, that's a big part of this one. And with this, I guess we are done with this point 2, because we have implemented all these parts here. So the next thing, colleagues. So on the timeline there should be a new section to display colleagues. Colleagues can be added or removed. They are basically calculating calculated based on user type. If we have students, then colleagues would be other users or other students that belong to the same class, like 2017 2020. If the user is a teacher, then actually what happens is that the colleagues will be all the other users that are teachers or staff. So that's actually the logic behind that. And for that, we already have something in the repository. We have this get colleagues somewhere, get user colleagues, and the idea is that I want to get user colleagues for a certain user, and to get user colleagues I first get the user. But here I guess that's the first thing that I want to do. Instead of making a new request to the database, instead of passing only the GUID of the user, let's maybe just pass the entire user object for which we want to get the colleagues, and then we can simply add the colleagues to that user, and well, then return the same back. I'm not sure exactly what we're doing, but we're checking this out, I guess. Guys, I think I just want to make a short break. I don't know, 5-7 minutes. But then I will be back and continue to work on this, because I know it's late, at least where I'm working right now, but at least this point 3 is something that I want to get done this night. And then tomorrow, maybe implement point 4 and 5. And yeah, then I could basically try to start to write the documentation for it. So yeah, I'll be back, as said, in 5 to 7 minutes. So I hope you stand by, because we still have some more coding to do and to implement some new functionalities in our social network. So I would be more than thrilled to see you here after the break. So yeah, just go take a cup of coffee, tea, water, whatever you need, and we can then just meet here again. So see you soon. Okay guys, I'm back. Are you still there with me? Some of you are. Thank you very much for holding and waiting. Let me just check. Yeah, YouTube is doing better, I guess, than Twitch. By the way, I'm streaming both on YouTube and on Twitch. So yeah, I try to keep track on both chats. Let me, before I go, I just want to check one other thing. And yeah, I guess we're good to go right now. Yeah, but okay, so let's try to think about the new functionality. Let's start from this repository. So what we actually do here, or the idea is, first of all, I said that I just want to get a user here and then return the same user with well, all the changed information, meaning that that user will have a list of colleagues after we call this method. So what I'll do is I'll have to go here to the repository, find that method and get user colleagues async. This should return a list of user. And it shouldn't return a list of user, it should return just the user that has the updated list. And we need here to pass in a user instead of a GUID. So let's pass the user. And for this user, we should actually then get the colleagues. So let's go back to the implementation and let's change this. So we don't want to return a list, we just want to return the updated user, and here we get a user and yeah, it should be user. Okay, now of course there are some things that that we want to change. First of all, we don't need to get user from the database anymore because well, here's the user already. So yeah, that's we can just get rid of all this type of lines here. So then the first check that we actually make is to see that if the user type is student, then what we want to do is actually for the user class, so if the user class is null, we throw an exception here. But what we actually want to do is we don't actually want to return an exception, and the class is I guess an entity here. Yes, so this means that we cannot check for null like this, but we should use this is null, and instead of throwing an error we should just return the user here, because if the user type is student and it doesn't have a class, we can't get the colleagues because we don't know which are the colleagues for that user. So we just return the unmodified user. Now then we make this call to the database, and from the users we look for the users for which or that have the same class as the user that we got passed in. And here we already know then that both should have, or it will try to see, or it will try to identify the class based on the ID, which is a GUID, which I guess should work. So we return the list from that one. But what we want to do, it will of course also return including the user. So in that case we just want to remove the users from these colleagues, and then we want to assign these colleagues to the user somehow. And for that, I guess we need behavior on the user itself, and I guess we have something already here. So add student to class, add edit department, add edit faculty, add friend to list, remove friend, accept friend request, reject friend request, change password, update basic info, remove friend request. Okay, so we don't have that, but we can expose a method Because what we have here is this colleagues that internally is a list of user actually, or no, it is not. What happens here? So we have here a list for the friends and the pending friend requests. But how do we set the colleagues then? Let me just check. So the colleagues. Okay. I guess that's actually nice. Because theoretically that should get the colleagues. So if the class is null, then it gets the class students. No, that won't work in this case, because I would have I should have made the class a dedicated aggregate for this to work somehow. I don't think that it will work this way, although the idea was nice, because the class, or I don't know. Let me just do this. Let's try it out. Let's go back to the repository, and here actually this entire thing is actually not needed anymore. So let's for now just return the user. It's not really fake, but should be changed, because I guess maybe we can var. Let's also here return the user. Should be changed also. I just want to see if that actually works to get the colleagues for a certain user from that property. Which, if it works, that would be actually a very good thing, because we don't need to make separate calls to the database right now. So I'm not really sure exactly what this would mean. But if we go right now, for instance, on the timeline, if we go on the timeline, and here on the timeline, on this timeline component, let's remove this breakpoint because we don't need it anymore. Here we get what do we get here? We get username, we get the user repository, and we get a user. But the user, where do we actually? Yeah, we get it here on initialized. So when we get this user, let's put a breakpoint here, because I just want to take a look and see if I have colleagues for the user, and at least for one of the users, I should have some colleagues, but I should have one colleague for the user that has my name. So let's check that. I don't remember exactly with which user I'm logged in right now, but we can change that, of course. Fortunately, we have a login and logout functionality. It still works. And yeah, let's see. Yeah, and I'm right now actually logged in with the user that should actually have a colleague. So let me just check that. And colleagues 1, and that's actually great. And it should be Jon Snow, I guess. No, it's myself. Okay. That is of course not optimal. That is of course not optimal. That is of course not optimal. Okay, I guess the easiest way to do that, because I don't want to lose a lot of time here, is actually to do this here. Let me go to user. So we'll change the setup here. So we'll have here a private list of user that would be colleagues, and by default it would be a new list of user that will actually be empty. And then what we will do here is we'll add another public method for consumers and say, for instance, public void add colleagues, and here we'll take, I guess we'll have an overload for this method. So first, maybe we just want to add one colleague in some circumstances, but actually what I want to add right now, actually let's take in an array, or no, a list. Let's take a list of user, and here basically what I would say is then colleagues equals colleagues, and then for the property, where is the property colleagues, I will just return the field. Of course we have to set a semicolon here. And yeah, that should be it. And right now in the repository, we can go back here to this method, and what we'll actually do here. So let's take it one by one. So if the user type is student, then if the student doesn't have a class or is not yet assigned to a class, then we just return it. We really can't add colleagues to that user. Otherwise, we get the colleagues from the database, and we just look for other users that have the same class as the user for which we want to get the colleagues, and then we actually make this to-list async, which will transform it to a list. Then from that list, I will remove the user itself, because the user itself will be in that list, and it shouldn't be displayed there. And then I can simply say, because I just created a method, user add colleagues, and then I would add the colleagues, and that is okay. The only thing that I would need to do right now, I guess, is actually, I don't really have to persist this change. Or what I want to say is that I really don't want to use the context save changes, because whenever I need to get the colleagues, I will basically calculate them in the repository. So it's not something that should be persisted separately here. Yeah, I guess that should be just fine. So if then we go to the next user type. So if the user type is teacher, then we actually look in the database for users that have the type teacher or the type staff. Then we remove the user, and then the only thing that we should say is user.add colleagues, and we add this list here. So that should do it. So if the user is of type staff, then it's similar to what we had before. So in this case, we have colleagues remove user, and then user.add colleagues, and we specify the list. And that should actually do it. And yeah, if none of these else ifs are getting hit, then we throw an exception that we couldn't. Or why? We shouldn't throw an exception. We should just return the user. Of course, the user won't have any colleagues, but yeah, that's we couldn't get any colleagues from the user. So let's just return user in this case. And yeah, so I guess from the repository perspective right now, everything should be okay. So let's maybe go back, and just before we go to implement the component, let's maybe go right here back where we were previously, and let's see if right now we'll have the colleagues of the user, and if they are displayed correctly. Although no, because there is the final thing that I have to stitch together is when I get the user by username, I also need to get the colleagues. So that is what I still have to do, and this is also in the repository, of course, but it is under get user by username. So let's just go back to the repository, which should be here, and there should be this method that is called get user by username async. You see here that we get user, then we await this get user friends. So this is how we get the friends, and then we say await get user colleagues async. Then we have we need to specify the user, and of course this is a reference type, so this user is exactly the same that is passed to this method. So it means that after the changes are done to the list, then this user should have the update list already, because that's how reference types should work, I guess. So yeah, I guess right now we could test again. So let's go to our timeline component, and yeah, just rerun the application, and yeah, hope it's working. And if we get the colleagues right, then the only thing that we actually need to do is just simply add a new component that would simply display the colleagues. And as I said, the colleague, as the colleagues are calculated based on the business logic, then this means that we actually don't have to add or remove colleagues. So we just need a very, very simple component that will just display them, and that's actually okay. That's actually okay. So let's go to the timeline, and that should go here. So let's see, we have this user, and for this user we have colleagues count 1, which is okay, but hopefully it's also the correct one, and it's Jon Snow in this case. So yeah, that's correct. So right now that works. That's actually great. I'm very excited about it. Good. Then let's the only thing that I say that we would need, or actually no, I don't think we need to add some more things here. Then just let's just create a new component here. This would be a razor component, and let's call it colleagues. Although there will be some, or there is some stitching there that we will need to do here on the parent afterwards. So where this is the colleagues, let's add the code behind file, add the new class, and this one would be called, but no, I don't want to name it like that. Based on experience, it kind of, if I rename it would cause problems, so I just delete it and recreate it, because I want to keep consistent and name this colleagues component. So it would be colleagues component, and then the code behind file I will name colleagues component.razor.cs, and this is how we actually bind these files together. And we have to mark this class as partial, because these two files, the colleagues component, so the part where we'll put the markup, and this CS file actually are the same class, so they are not different at all. Now, what do we have to display here from? But before we display something here, let me just set a little bit things up. So actually, this will be a very simple component. The only thing that we would need, the parent should provide us through a parameter a list of user that represents colleagues. So we'll have here a public. It should be a list of user, and of course I guess we'll have to add this one as well as using, and we'll call this colleagues, but it's a property, not a method, sorry for that. And I guess that this is actually the only property that we'll actually need here. So in this case we can just well, it's not okay to do copy paste, but we have this timeline friends here, which is actually the same. So from the UI part, I don't want to waste any time of it, so it would be basically this one, only that we would have to change just a few things here. And let me go back to the colleagues file and do this. So first of all, we will search for each item will represent a colleague, and we'll already have the colleagues, which is the property. And then for each colleague, for right now we have this default images, but then for the title it's actually colleague.name. Then what we have here is colleague .user type, and here we don't need the unfriend button. So that's actually it. So right now the only thing that we need to do is here in this timeline component, actually in the timeline cover component, because there is it is there that we have actually this this type of but not timeline cover. It's here actually that we display the cover or the links that we have. So you see that we have here the pending friend requests, we have here the friends, we have the about, the timeline, and it's actually here that we just need to add a new list item to this list, and we'll have to add it in two places because we have this list actually that is displayed somehow for large devices and differently for smaller devices. So let's just copy out a list item from here, and the href would be the same. The class pending friend requests active, that should be colleagues active, and here is where we'll need to do some stitching because yeah, we have a lot of different child components that we set as active or inactive depending on things that happen. And then here on click this would be set colleagues active. Of course we don't have this so far, but we'll implement that. And yeah, I guess that's it. And the same thing actually, we'll go here and it's to here. So it should actually do exactly the same thing. Now of course we have some errors because here in this timeline component we see that we have we set the different parts active, and we have this active child component that actually defines which child is active right now in this parent. And here we just add the colleagues into this enum, and then we should create a property for that, like add friends button visible, pending friend requests visible, pending friend requests active. Let's make it like this, so it would be private string colleagues active get set, and we'll set this default to string.empty, because the default when we actually get into this component for the first time, the one that is active is this timeline active, so where we basically see the post for this user. So yeah, right now we have set this colleagues active, but this means that in onInitialized async, show Unfriend Button pending friend request visible. So here in onInitialized we don't actually do anything, but then when we set the about active, we should also add this, for instance, like colleagues active equals string.empty. Then here this is the send friends active, and here that will do exactly the same. Oh, not that, not that. We can just take that. Then in the set timeline active, we can just put it once again there. And then set pending friend requests active, and we can add this also here to make sure that we want to set all those properties basically each time for each single of those components. And then the only thing that we'll want to do here, didn't I add a method so far, or no? Didn't I do that? No, I guess I didn't. Let me go here back. So here the colleagues active right now is no error anymore. So let's just copy this, and let's create a method for that, which would be private async task set, or let's just paste how we call that. And what we'll do here is actually very similar to what we do in all these other methods, with the only difference actually that here this would be set to string.empty. Okay, and this should be set to active, because this will be used as a class. And the class active, then this is a CSS class in this template that defines how the active link should be displayed actually. And then when we invoke the callback, then we say that colleagues. This should be right now. And here in the parent, this would be the timeline component. You see that we have here okay, pending friend request component. Why do you have a problem here? You actually shouldn't. Let me just close it. My experience shows me that sometimes you just need to close the Blazor file and then reopen it, and then it should be fine. But it's not actually. What errors do I have? Pending friend request component, but we have this component. Okay, let me then rebuild the project. It's also something that sometimes helps, because sometimes it just fails to find the components, and it works till now, and we actually didn't change anything for this. And in fact, you see that it did build successfully, so that's kind of strange. So here what we need to do here is then add a new case, and here that would be case. Let's make it like that: enums.active child component dot colleagues. So in this case, what we want to display as active is, but sorry, not that one. In that case, we want to display the colleagues component. And in the colleagues component, what we will pass in would be the parameter, and that would be user.colleagues to list, because it's, I guess, an enumerable. Okay. And then, of course, we can break. So let me just go on edit, advanced, and format the document. Okay, and now everything is fine, but I still have this error here, which is kind of strange. So I'll close here everything, and I'll just run the application. because we saw that it actually builds, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. Okay, so the browser is on the other screen. I'll take it here. Okay, so let's see. Let's see if we go to the timeline. So this is the logged in user, and I know that I have a colleague for that user. So we see that we have the pending friend request, and I guess, yeah, we have the colleague. And I guess the problem is that we didn't actually rename that. So if I go back to the markup, where should it be? On the timeline cover. Yeah, and this should not be pending friend requests, but this should be colleagues. Okay, and yeah, that should actually do it. Let me just close here some files and then reopen it, because I really don't understand why I have that error there. Let's close this data because we don't need it anymore right now. I'm just closing a lot of files here. Okay. There's a lot of things happening here. My God, how many files do I have open? I have a lot. It seems, but right now I am at the end, so yeah. So let's open it. It was the timeline component, I guess. And this is where, yeah, right now you see that there's no error. So no error here anymore. Happens sometimes. I don't know if this is because I'm using Visual Studio Preview. I'm not sure exactly how it's working on the regular Visual Studio. But yeah, that's what happens. So let's just try again, because I want to see exactly if I can see the colleagues of a different user if I'm visiting a different profile, and colleagues should actually be visible. So I should see the colleagues for a different user. Okay, so let's go on my timeline to check that out. But why is this still pending request? Because that's what I always do wrong. In this timeline cover, it's actually two places where I have to change that, and probably I've changed that for the small screen. So this would be colleagues, and let's just then reload the page. But now it's still maybe let's just restart the application and let's make sure. So we have here this username colleagues active, and the name that should be displayed should be colleagues, and let's go down here. And here it should also be colleagues. So yeah, right now actually it should be fine. So let's I don't know, let's run it again. I'm not sure why it didn't work. I'm really not sure why it didn't work. But let's try it out one more time. Let's try it out. So let's go to the timeline, and right now it's called colleagues, and here I can see that I have one colleague. And then let me go to a different user, and if I go on colleagues, yeah, this user shouldn't have any colleagues. And let me just log out and log in with the other user and see how this looks like from the other side. So if I go to my timeline, I still shouldn't see any colleagues here. And if I go to this other user, I don't see the pending friend request, which is correct. And I don't have friends. We are not friends yet. Okay, because we removed the friendship. So yeah, that's correct. But we see that if I'm logged in with Arya Stark, but I'm on the profile that it's actually my name here, so I can see the colleagues of this user. So on this profile, which is actually okay, because I might want to see exactly okay, well, what colleagues does a certain user have. Which means that they actually belong to the same class. So that's yeah, that's important. Okay, so I guess this works right now. Let me just log back in with the other user, because this is kind of like my default user right here, and I just want to have the cookie for that. So yeah, I guess we did it. That's another thing that we can remove from here. So it's these colleagues. Also done. Then we have this posting part, which is actually, well, there's actually a lot of work to do here, because we will have to implement a post repository, because we just have a user repository. So we'll have also to work on the backend just for a little bit. But in that case, I think I'll just create a repository, and I guess we'll just add the interface, or we'll define the contract methods and the implementation once we see what we exactly need. And this is actually an approach that, when building, I would say, real software, so not for a demo purpose, that's actually not a good thing at all, because when you think about functionalities in the repositories, you shouldn't think about, or you shouldn't think those functionalities in terms of what the UI needs or what the presentation needs. You have to think about what the repository exposes based on the business logic of the domain itself. So yeah, the way that I'm doing it here is clearly not okay. But as said, for now, my main goal here is to get this application up and running for a demo as quick as possible. So unfortunately, I have to skip some of the principles in programming, which is not okay, and I really don't encourage anybody to do what I'm doing right now. However, it's also late here. I don't know, it's 12:30 a.m. in Romania, where I'm streaming from. So I guess that for today, that should be enough. Probably I'll wake up tomorrow morning, and I'll continue to work on that, and probably I'll stream. So if you want to join tomorrow morning, I'm really not sure exactly at what time, but it would be, I would say, in around 9 hours from now or something like that. 9 or 10 hours from now, I'll continue to work on this and streaming. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for engaging in the chat. It was really important for me. And yeah, I wish you a very good day or a good night, depending on where you are, and see you next time.